say, here I come to oh Savior, Savior, hear my
To your will I say yes. I'll say yes. I'll say yes. Say yes. Yeah. All right, 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 all right. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Isaiah, the 17th chapter, first chapter, 17th verse. First chapter, 17th verse. It got so sweet in here, I can't hardly concentrate. Isaiah 1 and 17. Boy, if I could get my heart out of my body, I could help you to understand what I'm feeling on the inside. But I can't get my heart out of my body. All I could just do is just Isaiah 1 and 17. The word of the Lord reads upon this chord. Learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, and plead for the widow. Learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, and plead for the widow. Plead for the widow. I want to preach from an idea this morning. I ain't going to be before you very long. As a matter of fact, if I sat down right now and pronounced the benediction, the word is already going forth. But I don't want no problems out of y'all saying you didn't preach this morning. Won't be before you long. I want to talk from an idea. We've got a lot to learn. We've got a lot to learn. I've been preaching through the prophets in this season because I believe that for what we are experiencing as a collective, it requires a groundedness in the principles of the community of God. Now, I didn't just say anybody's community. There are several communities that you can be affiliated and associated with. But if we're going to survive in this moment, we need to be grounded in the ethics of the community of God. Hear me closely. If we're going to survive in this moment with everything that's going on, and as black folks, we know when we say everything that's going on, we're looking at everything that's going on. If we're going to survive, we have to be grounded in the ethics of the community of God. So we're preaching through the prophets. Last month we were preaching through Hosea. This month we're preaching through Isaiah. And the prophets all have a difficult yet diligent task. And that is preaching love to people that don't know what love looks like. The prophets are trying to preach love to people that have a difficult relationship with what love looks like. Because when you come out of captivity, sometimes love and compassion and care and gentleness becomes a lost notion. See, we will start to treat each other like they treat us. If you're not careful, you will take on the behaviors and the ideas and the ethics of oppressors and call yourself a promised people. But I come here to let you know that the promise is not in their oppression, but the promise is in our praxis as we move together. Let me say that one more time. The promise is not in their platform, it's not in their positions, it's not in their power, it's not in their money, it's not in their gold, it's not in their silver, it's not in the worldly treasures. That's not where the promise is. The promise is in a people that will pull together. And if we are going to survive this moment, we got to be a people that will pull together. We got to get back to the ABCs of being a people that will pull together, that I won't leave anybody behind. I won't leave anybody alone. I will pull with you and pull for you. We will intercede for one another because the promise is in a people that will pull together. The prophet has a difficult assignment in preaching love, talking about love to a people that have been abused, misused, overlooked, miscast. You know what it feels like to be miscast? When people portray things about you that are simply not true. You've been miscast. When they say stuff like you're an angry black woman, you've been miscast. When they talk about how our men behave, we have been miscast. And so the duty and diligence of the prophet is to help the people understand and see no matter what people have said about you or how they have treated you, God has another plan in mind for you. As a matter of fact, the prophet is steadily reminding the people that you are on the mind of God, that God has you on God's heart, that God took the time and prayed for you. I'm so glad he prayed. I'm so glad he prayed. I'm so glad he prayed for me, that God is in the position of intercession when it comes to us and is pulling on our behalf. The prophet is having to remind folks that where you've been is not who you are. The prophet is steadily reminding people that you are not the substance of your lowest moment, that the things that you've been through don't make you who you are, but everything that I say about you is the truth. Everything that I speak over your life is your power. Everything that I declare about you is how you gonna make it through. It's not what they said, but what I'm doing in you. So Isaiah is called to love the people in tangible and real ways. Amen. Scholars wrestle with the book of Isaiah to find out, Isaiah, what do you even mean with this? Some scholars say that Isaiah is a pronouncement of doom. The kingdom will fall and the character of the people of God will falter. That there's no hope. There's no way for folks that have been damaged and hurt to recover. Some scholars say that the purpose of the book is doom. Other scholars say that the book of Isaiah is dedicated to deliverance. That regardless of what you've been through and where you're at and what you've experienced, that God still is pulling in your direction, and God still believes in you, and God still loves you, and God is still able to restore you. That deliverance is possible. Pulling that you will be rescued. Wrestling between doom and deliverance. Hope and horror. A mess and a miracle. Wandering in the same book, it's got to be one or the other. And I came to the fact that this text is not about one or the other. The reality is, doom or deliverance is not two sides of a coin, but doom and deliverance rest in the same spheres of consciousness. Rather than pulling them apart, you got to hold them together. Because our reality is that in order for us to receive deliverance, we had to go through some doom. Let me talk to you again. In order to receive deliverance, we had to go through some doom. And so while I am being delivered to my ultimate position, I had to be delivered from something. And if I'm scared to talk about what I was delivered from, then I'll never make it to where God is delivering me to. Deliverance is where I will be. But I can't celebrate my delivery until I acknowledge that the delivery had a price. We are here by the grace of God, but there was price for that delivery. I overcame, but there was cost to conquer. I made it through, but there was a price for the process. How I moved from doom to delivery, I had to pay for it. And there ought to be somebody in the house that can declare, you see my deliverance, but you don't know what I paid for it. And so it is an immature faith that would only celebrate deliverance. But when you walk with God, you know that you made it out is not enough. But your real story is in how you made it out. Because how you made it out is what developed you. So yes, you were delivered, but through the process of deliverance, you were also developed. I'm not just what I went through, but what I went through improved me. What I went through made me better. What I went through made me stronger. What I went through made me wiser. I can't just shout about deliverance, but I got to shout about everything that I went through that pulled me to deliverance. And so I'm not simply praising God for the outcomes. I'm praising God for the incomes, because everything that went in me is how God got this out of me. And so when I shout, I'm shouting God for God's mercy and God's grace and God's power and God's healing and God's pressure in my life, taking me through mountains and through storms and through valleys, because I made it through. And there ought to be one somebody that can declare that where I am ain't the story, but I made it through. You see me looking cute on Sunday, but I made it through. You see my nice car and the nice house, but I praise God because I made it through. And so it is that I'm not afraid to tell you about deliverance, but I'm shouting over some stuff that tried to doom me. I'm shouting over some stuff that tried to destroy me. I'm shouting over some stuff that tried to damage me. Isaiah is suggesting to God's people that doom or deliverance is not a destination. It's a choice. So scholars are trapped in the idea that it has to be one or the other. But when you know God, like you know God, you know that there have been some times where you said, I'm not going back to what I used to be in. I'm not stepping back to where I was. I'm not surrendering and I am not retreating. But I'm making the choice to press forward. I'm making the choice to go forward. I'm making the choice. Anybody in here ever had to make that choice? That no matter what I'm dealing with, I refuse to let it defeat me. No matter what I'm dealing with, I refuse to let it destroy me. No matter what I'm dealing with, I refuse to let it take me down. I'm making the decision. Isaiah suggests that the choice is captured between doom and deliverance, and how we understand doom and deliverance is found in how we treat one another. The trajectory in the book says that doom or deliverance is a communal choice. It is the choice to get free and stay free. You didn't hear me this morning. Doom or deliverance, not a destination, it's a decision. And the decision is to get free and stay free. I'm going to talk to this side. I didn't like that side. Doom or deliverance is not a destination. It's a decision. And the decision is to get free and stay free. Prophet says that those who desire to get free and stay free must learn. I'm in the text. Must learn. What must we learn to do? Isaiah says those who desire to get free and stay free must learn to first do good. Do good. If you're going to make the choice to get free and stay free, we must learn to do good. Not play good. Not just look good. Not just act good. Because we got a lot of folks who are serving the kingdom of the theater. Know how to put on a show and a production. Act real good on the outside, but don't do very much good on the inside. Prophet says if we are a community committed to deliverance, we must learn to do good. What else does the prophet say if we are going to be a community committed to deliverance? The prophet says that we must learn to aid the oppressed. Aid the oppressed. The text says we must come to the rescue of those who are experiencing difficult times. It is a reprioritization of whose voice matters. It's not the greatest who matter the most, but the Bible declares to suffer the little ones to come unto me. If we are going to be a community committed to deliverance, we must rescue the oppressed. Text says if we're going to be a community dedicated to deliverance, we must defend the orphan. It's not enough for us to romanticize children, talk about protecting the babies. You won't make sure that they have milk to eat. It's not enough for us to play about the lives of children when 20% of children in the United States live in poverty. It's not enough for us to romanticize children but don't take care of the children. You want all these signs talking about I'll adopt your child. There's plenty of children that you can adopt right now. Don't play with it. Be about it. We must defend the children in the state of Mississippi. 11,000 people applied for welfare. 167 people were approved. Don't talk about it, be about it. A state that has declined women, their bodily autonomy agency in health care, that is to suggest forcible birth but deny resources for their everyday lives, is the very definition of wickedness. Isaiah says if we want to be delivered, we must defend the orphan. Final admonition that Isaiah gives to the communities that are making the choice to get free and stay free is that we must plead for the widows. Bob Marley said, "No woman, no cry." So the text is suggesting to us that those who are committed to deliverance must join the struggle with the widow. Isaiah conceptualizes that a community dedicated to deliverance looks like a community that pulls the bottom up and makes sure that they are heard, cared for, and kept. That we must intercede and stand in the gap for members that have been marginalized. The prophet realizes that communities are only as strong as their weakest member. So instead of consolidating the power at the top, the prophet says that when you really want deliverance, you join in justice, you partner with those who are at the bottom. The partnership with the oppressed will create power in the people. The prophet says that if you want to be a community dedicated to deliverance, we must learn to plead. The word plead means to cry. He didn't say we must learn how to fight. Isaiah says that we must learn how to cry. And I was curious as to why we needed to learn how to cry. Many times it feels like our tears are a symbol and sign of our weakness. When we cry, we want to cover our face and don't let anybody see our vulnerability. When we cry, we want to turn away so people can't see my pain and people can't see my anguish. when we cry, we don't want anybody to be able to see the tears rolling down our face, so I turn away from you. When things get too heavy, I cordon myself off. When things get too hard, when tears are falling down from my cheeks, I don't want nobody to see. But the prophet says that if we want to be committed to deliverance, we must learn to cry. We must learn that our weakness is not a character fault. Our weakness is not something to be ashamed of, because the Bible declares that God's strength is perfected in my weakness. And so it is, the prophet is accessing the reality that I have to dig down on the inside and be brave enough and bold enough to be weak. I have to find the courage to be vulnerable. I have to find the integrity to be soft. I have to find the courage to be. The prophet tells the people, if you are going to be a community dedicated to deliverance, you can't be afraid to cry. You can't be afraid to shed some tears. You can't be afraid to tell people, that's all right, baby. God understands your tears. You can't go around here telling people to suck it up. You can't go around here telling little boys, wipe them tears off of your face. But if you know that God's strength is perfected in my weakness, then you understand that when I'm weak, that means that God is strong, and I'm pulling for more power. When the tears are falling from my face, I'm pulling for more power. And so it is, I have to find the courage to cry. Yeah, I know you don't like this. I know it's difficult to hear, but I had to find the courage to cry. This week, I celebrated my birthday. On my birthday, my goddaughter called me. My goddaughter called me on my birthday. Called me on my birthday. She's 3. People keep having babies. Praise be the Lord. Because I ain't having none. Praise be the Lord. Amen. She's 3. She called me on my birthday. And she said, hey, what you doing? I said, nothing. She said, you want to eat some pickles? Listen, don't judge us. That's what we do. We like pickles. When we get together, we eat pickles. We sit around and we eat pickles, maybe 3 or 4 pickles at a time. She have 2, one in each hand, and I just have 1 because she greedy like that. She said, you want to have some pickles? I said, yes. Go get the pickles. So she's on FaceTime going to the refrigerator. She said, hold on 1 second. I got to get them out the refrigerator. She opens up the refrigerator. She's 3. She opens up the refrigerator. She goes get the pickles out of the refrigerator. She goes and she sits down. She sits down on the floor with the iPad trying to get the pickles open. I said, baby, are you all right? She says, yeah, I'm fine. I just got to get the jar open. She's sitting down on the floor trying to get the pickles open. She's wrestling, trying to get the pickles open. Okay, now she's 3. Her hand don't go all the way around the lid, okay? But she's still trying to get the pickle jar open. Now, she's starting to huff and puff. Now, you got to understand her like I understand her. She gonna do it on her own. She ain't never needed me nor wanted my help. She just want to eat pickles with me. She's getting frustrated. Trying to get the jar open. She's huffing and puffing, trying to get a pickle. I already got my pickle. It's in my hand. I'm ready waiting on her. She's welling up. Y'all know how it is to well up. She's getting all red in the face. And I'm saying, I'm finna text your daddy, because you're not going to cry on this phone with me. She's welling up. She's upset. She's frustrated. She don't want no help, but she want that pickle. She's trying her best. She's frustrated. And then she becomes overwhelmed because she wants what she wants, and she wants how she wants it. And the tears are starting to form in her eyes, and I'm just praying, Lord, help her, Lord, help her, Lord, help her. Lord, help her, Lord, help her, Lord, help her. And then she just rears back and she just says, ah. She can't communicate, but she can cry. She doesn't have the words to express her frustration, but she can cry. She may not be able to power through this, but she can cry. Because the first thing that she learns as a daughter to her father is that when she cries, her father comes. And while she's sitting there crying, I see the hands of her father reach down and turn. Y'all ain't hearing me. I see the hands of her father reach down and turn the lid. And that's when I remembered that I do not belong to myself and that I am not here on my own, but I am God's child. And when I'm in a pickle, I serve a God that will reach down and turn things around. And there ought to be somebody that can declare this morning that when I cry, my cry calls my God. When I cry, God will reach down and turn things around. When I cry, God will reach down and get me out of a pickle. And I'm not crying because I'm weak. I'm crying because God is strong. I'm not crying because I can't. I'm crying because God can. I'm not crying because I'm finished. I'm crying because God is faithful. I'm not crying because of my mess. I'm crying because of my maker. I'm not crying because of the fight. I'm crying because it's fixed. And so when I cry, the power comes. When I cry, the help comes. When I cry, the healing comes. I'm not crying because it's over. I'm crying because it just got started. Greater joy is coming. Greater peace is coming. Greater strength is coming. Greater love is coming. Greater grace is coming. Greater hope is coming. Is there anybody in here that can declare, I got tears falling down my face, but God is able. My heart is heavy, but God is able. I got a bad report, but God is able. The doctor said no, but God is able. The lawyer said no, but God is able. There ought to be somebody that can declare, God is able. That's why I'm crowding. God is able. That's why I'm praising. God is able. That's why I worship. God is able. That's why I work. God is able. That's why I hope. God is able. That's why I press. There ought to be somebody that can declare, it's tears in my eyes, but hope in my heart, because God is able.